Okay, so we're on page 66. You should get notes out or something that you need to talk about the verb tener. So somebody tell me, what does tener mean? ¿Qué significa tener? We've used tener before. It is a verb we've used.
Can you use it in a sentence?
Can I use it in a sentence?
Like how do you use it in a sentence?
Sure. Yo tengo un marcador. Yo tengo un marcador. Tengo que ir al baño. Let's see, what else? Tengo 29 años. Yo tengo 29 años. Ay, tengo frío. Okay, so tengo comes from the verb tener. Tengo is yo, tengo, I, whatever the verb. And tener means to have. Okay? So tener. Everyone say it with me. Say tener. 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 Right. Again, the R, the Spanish R is not in English which is it's an odd sound, is what it is. This is more like a really fast D in English. So the D, the double D in daddy, right here. Daddy. Daddy, 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 daddy. That ada, that really fast D sound. That's the same sound as the R. Maybe a little softer, not quite as D, as hard, right? Daddy, adi. Tener. This means expensive. Caro. Daddy. Okay? So, it's the same sound. Caro. So, tener, not tener. Tener means to have. To have. And in English, as well as in Spanish, there's definitely more than one use for the verb to have. So, for example, we say, I have a marker, which is what I said. Tengo un marcador. I have a marker. But I could also say, I have to go to the bathroom. And that's what I said the second time. Tengo que ir al baño. I have to go to the bathroom. So there's more than one way to use tener. In English, when we say our age, we say I am 29 years old. Okay? In Spanish, though, you don't say I am 29 because you are not a year. You are a person. But you have so many years. All right? So in Spanish, we say tengo instead of estoy or soy. So you don't say I am, estoy, or soy. You say tengo however many años you have. So how old are you guys? 14, 15? Huh? 13, 14, 15, right? So you would say tengo what? How do you say 13, 14, or 15? Doce is 12. So 10 is 10. Once, doce, trece. Trece is 13. 14 is 14. And quince, like quinceañera, the 15th 15th birthday party, a really special event. Quinceañera. Quince is 15. Okay, so you'd say tengo 15 años. I have 15 years. All right, so let's look at what the book has to say about the verb. The verb tener, you've already used some forms of the verb tener, to have, like cuántos años tienes, which is what we were just saying. Cuántos, which means what? Cuántos años tienes. What does tienes mean? Remember I said tengo means I have. What does tienes mean? You have. Good. So you have. And años. ¿Qué significa años? Years. And cuántos? Anybody remember what cuántos means?
What?
Not what. That would be que. It is a question word. It's one of those words that we looked at. That would be como. How many or how much? Exactly. Either one. How many or how much. So how many years do, it's a question, so in English we have to add the word do you have? Good. And then tengo 17 años. I have, or I am, 17 years old. All right, so let's keep reading. In addition to expressing age, you can also use the verb tener to talk about other things that you have, like in your possession, including classes in your schedule, something in your hand, anything that we would use the word for have in English, pretty much. The chart below shows the different forms of the verb. All right, so let's look at this chart in a chart format. So we have the verb tener, which means to have. What I'd encourage you to do is to have like one page, or maybe like the last 10 pages of your book or something, just for verbs, okay? And then every time you get a new verb, go into the back and add it to the chart so you got all your verbs in one spot. I find that helpful. So you have tener, put this at the top. This is the infinitive, right? And it means what? What does tener mean? To have, right? And who's doing the action? Nobody. Nobody's doing the action yet. There's no subject because we haven't conjugated it, right? Once we conjugate it by using this chart, then we're adding a subject. So we have yo, tú, which means you, él, ella, or usted, which is the you form, but the formal one. We have nosotros, vosotros, which we're not going to use. We'll memorize it because you might hear someone say it, but you don't use it because we're learning Spanish in South America. And they always use the usted form instead of vosotros. So ellos, or ellas, or ustedes. All right, so yo, if you want to say the first person singular. So first person, which is this one and this one, but the singular version, you're going to say tengo. Not like tengo, but like tango with an E. T-E-N-G-O. Tango. And then you have is tienes. He has or she has, that's él or ella. Or if you add the word usted, then it means you have, but it's the formal way of saying you. So, usted tiene. Nosotros tenemos. Again, vosotros means you all. Vosotros tenéis, you all have. But we are not going to use that one because it's from Spain, and we're learning Spanish from South America. Tenéis. And then last one, tienen. All right, now let's talk about a few things with this verb so that you can remember, so that it can help you remember the changes that are taking place. The best thing to do is start by just trying to flat out memorize it so that you've got some familiarity with the way that it should sound. And that way when you start to think about it and you go to use it, if all of a sudden you're like, well, is it tiene or tenes? Like, you're going to start to feel like something doesn't sound right because you've begun memorizing the way that it should sound. So let's start with that. Let's say these together, everyone together with me. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, tienen. Okay, all together now. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, tienen. Make sure you're saying each vowel distinctly and not like adding a Y. Tango, tango. It's tango, tango. And there's no Y at the end. Tang or W. There's no like tango, tango. That would be wrong. It's tango, tango. Okay? And then tienes, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, and tienen. So say it again. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, tienen. All right, so now let's compare this verb. Where's my rag? Let's compare this verb to the verb hablar, which means to speak, okay? What is what?
What does it say next to the three?
Right here?
Yeah.
It says él, ella, which means he, she, and usted means you. But it's formal, the formal version of you. Tu, right here, tu, is the informal version for to say you. So if you're talking to your friend, you, then you use tu. If you're talking to you, a teacher, then you would say usted. Okay. So tener is an ER verb. Right here, see? ER. And hablar is an AR verb. So when we learn verbs, we always, like at the very beginning of Spanish 1, we learned AR verbs, which were, I hope you remember the endings, o, as, a, amos, ais, an. So you take the root and you put it on the ends at the beginning of these suffixes in order to say who's doing what. ER verbs are the same thing, and all they do is change the A to an E. So if you compare O, this is for ER verbs, O, es, a, amos, ace, en. It's the same thing. They conjugate identically, except that it's an E instead of an A. And tener is an ER verb. So look at the endings again. O, es. Sorry. O, es, a, amos, ace, ein. So they conjugate regularly the ER in order to say who's doing what. But there are some things that are different. So the usual verb that we use to explain conjugations for ER is comer, which means to eat. And just like AR verbs, you just take the root. So which is everything except the ends, com, and you add that root right here to the beginning. So como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. Notice the root never changed, right? It stayed the same all the way through. Com. The only thing that changed was this ER to different endings to tell you who's doing what. Now, that's different than tener. Tener does change. Look, ten is the root, but in this one it adds a G, and this one, and this one, it adds an I, and then this one is ten, just the root. Okay? So this is what I want to explain. Why is this one changing the root when these do not? Okay? So that's what we're going to talk about next. Does everyone understand that flow so far? All right. So I'm going to erase these then. Does anybody need a picture of these? All right. So why does tener change the root? That's what we want to talk about. There's something called a root changing verb, which is a verb that changes the root instead of keeping it the same. So this is a root changing verb. And there's something else called a boot. Okay, a boot is exactly, it looks like a boot. So we have these conjugations here. If we draw a boot like this, do you see the shoe? Do you see the shoe? Okay, that's the boot. When we refer to the boot, we're talking about first person singular, second person singular, third person singular, and third person plural. That's what we're referring to. The boot is what defines certain changes. In this case, it's a root changing verb, but there are other things that we'll learn about later that the boot affects. Okay, this one, it's only changing the root inside the boot. So it's a root boot verb. But notice outside of the boot, the root is not changing. T-E-N and T-E-N. So what is changing? It's adding an E to I verb. So this is a boot or an E to I root change. Okay, that's what's happening. It's adding an E to I, E. E to I-E. It's adding an I to these, except that this is irregular. Most root boot changing verbs that do this E to I, adding this I in here, does it for all of these. But tener is irregular because for this first person singular, it doesn't do this, it adds a G instead. So it's just different, okay? So that's what I want you to understand to help you memorize which words go where. So let's say it again. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, and tienen. Okay, now say it all together because we really want to hear the flow. That's part of what makes Spanish is, or Latin language is Latin, is that they have this sense of melodic flow. And I want you to hear it. So tengo, say it with me. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, tienen. One more time. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tienes, tenéis. Sorry, I messed that up. Any questions about the verb tener, how to use it, or how to conjugate it? Okay. Then let's go on to time. We'll come back to the activities and do some practice ones together. But let's look at time first. So go ahead and turn the page to 68. Does anybody need a picture of this? Okay. Where did mine? Okay, can somebody tell me what the word que means with an accent? Que. Q-U-E. What does it mean? Que significa que? What does que mean? Que significa que? I just told you. Yes. What? So que significa. What does it mean? Que significa que? What does what mean? All right. So que with an accent. If it doesn't have an accent, it's a different word. Okay? Yeah. Can it wait?
Yes.
Okay. Que. And then what does hora mean? Que hora? It means hour or time. So que hora. And es is from the verb ser, which means to be. So what does es mean? We see that word a lot. Es. Huh? Not the, that's close. El. Is. It means is or it is. So what time is it? What time is it? ¿Qué hora es? If you want to ask someone, what time is it? Then you would say, ¿Qué hora es? Hey, amigo, ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? Everyone say that with me. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? And make sure that E is an A sound. ¿Qué hora es? E. Also, the H is silent. And the D, the R is that double D. So, ¿Qué hora es? Everyone say, ¿Qué hora es? Bueno, muy bien. What time is it? Now, in Spanish, when you are asking what time it is, you use the question, ¿Qué hora es? And when telling time in Spanish, you'll use this following construction. Ser plus la or las plus the hour. So, notice, hora means hour. What hour is it, literally? And is hora masculine or feminine, singular or plural? Hora. Do you think that's masculine or feminine? Feminine, right, because of the A. Now, it's not always that case, but you can still assume. Que hora, so that's feminine. And it's singular because it doesn't have the S, right? The S, horas, would make it plural. And also, hour is the subject, es is the verb, and es is singular because if it was plural, it should be son, which means are, they are. So, hora is feminine, singular. Now, when we want to say what time it is, we're talking about a specific hour, which means we're going to include a number. Right now, there's no number, so it's just what time, what hour is it. So you'd say the verb ser, which means to be, plus la or las. What do these words mean? La or las. ¿Qué significan la y las? Anybody know? It means the same thing as this one. Ben, what did I... Yes, the. But the difference is that it's singular or plural, right? So if it's the book, which is libro, and that's masculine, it would be el, like this. If it's books, then it would be los. If it's the door, actually let's use this word, the hour, it would be la hora. And if it's hours, horas, so las horas. So el, los, la, and las, all four mean the word the. But depending on whether or not the noun is masculine or feminine and singular or plural, you have to pick the right one of the four to use. So that's why there's two here. La or las, and then the time, the hour number. So, la and las, you never will use el or los because what the word the is referring to is the hour, which is feminine. So you'll always use the feminine words for the, la or las. And then depending on whether or not there is 1 hour or a higher number, 6 hour, like right now, let's just make it even and say it's 9 o'clock, okay? 9 is a plural number. So you're going to use las for numbers 2 through 24 or 12, however, if you're military time, or so let's say 2 through 12, and la for hour number 1, because numbers 2 through 12 are plural. So let's do one example. Let's say it is let's say you finished your homework at 1 o'clock in the morning. So you finish your homework and your friend texts you at 1 o'clock and they're like, I just woke up And you're like, I just finished my homework. And they're like, what? What time is it? Okay? ¿Qué hora es? And you say, es la una. Es la una. So there's a few things you need to recognize. Number one, es means it is. And it's singular. It, not they. It's singular because our, one, is singular. La is singular and feminine because our is feminine. So now that 1 o'clock, 1 is referring to our, 1 is also feminine, una. Now let's say it was 2 o'clock. It's going to change from es because es is singular and 2 is plural. So it'll be son. Son las, so far the same, except plural. Es is it is. Technically, son means they are. Son, they are the, and then two. How do you say two? Dos. Good. But dos does not change to an A. It doesn't say las das or something. Okay? Okay. Let's read it in our books again. So, ser plus la or las plus the hour. Some examples, es la una. So, 8 o'clock would be son las ocho. 12 would be son las doce. So, many Spanish-speaking countries do use the 24-hour military time clock to express the AM and the PM in writing instead of using abbreviations. When you are speaking, use the following expressions to communicate whether a time is in the morning, afternoon, or evening. Son las 7 de la mañana. So we have 3 phrases that we're going to look at. De la mañana, which is of the morning. We have de la tarde. We should be familiar with these because of the very first day or first lesson, which means of the afternoon. And de la noche, which means of the night. So if I want to say it's 1 o'clock, or let's say 9 o'clock right now, do I say son las 9 de la mañana or son las 9 de la noche? Which one would I say? So, ¿qué hora es ahora? What time is it now? Son las 9 de mañana or son las 9 de noche, de la noche? Which one is the right one? De la mañana, right, because right now it's morning. Good. What if it was noon? Son las 12 de la what? Tarde, exactly, afternoon. Because at that moment it's not morning, but it's not night. Good. All right. To express the minutes, you're going to use the word y. So we have ser plus la or las plus the hour plus y, which means and, plus the minutes. Yeah, plus these. Okay? So it is or they are, depending on if the hour is singular or plural, the or the 8th hour and 20th minutes. Okay, so if we wanted to say right now, we haven't gotten to these numbers yet, but right now it is 53, I think. I can't tell from here. So that would be 53. So how would we say that? If I wanted to say right now, it is 8:53. Son las 8:53 de la mañana. All right. Let's do it again. How would I say this time right here? This one. 10 o'clock. How would I say that? Well, let's start at the beginning. Is it es or son? Son. La or las? Son las. This one. 10. Son las 10. Y. Nothing. You wouldn't say y, right? Because it's just 10. What about 11:05 a.m.? Es or son? Son. La or las? 1, 2, 3. What? Somebody say it? 11. Son las 11 y minutes. 5 de la what? Mañana. Muy bien. Bravo. Excellent, guys. Okay, anybody need a picture of this little formula? Okay, go ahead. All right, so I want you to read the rest of page 68. It goes through another thing. There's a cultural note on the left, and then the homework is online, and you can start working on your homework. And I'll let you work on homework with a partner if you want to ask some questions and stuff. But you can use the rest of the time now to work on your homework. Yes, you may.